Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi, it's so good to see you.
So good to see you too.
Great.
How are you doing today? Hi, you guys. Thanks for joining.
I'm
This is
doing
my friend Stacy. Well,
great.
we'll just get started. I know we're right here, just a couple minutes over noon here, and so excited to see these people joining us. My name's Amanda, and I'm excited to be here with my friend Stacy. We're just gonna kind of off the cuff talk a little bit more about how to channel more self-love and what that means to us. And our goal, we were just talking ahead of time about our goal of what we were wanting to take away from this. And really, we want to share some tips that hopefully you can walk away feeling inspired and that will just help you on your mission to become your healthiest, best self too. So Stacy, I will just say hi. Thank you guys so much for joining us. So Stacy and I are both in California. This is kind of a crazy story. We literally met on Instagram. We decided to do a little chat and get to know each other a little bit more. And I was just blown away by how much we had in common. And we became fast friends, and we just decided, you know what, we are going to partner together on some different things like this, where Stacy's like a total rock star at meditation and affirmations and how to bring and self channel that love more into your life. So she's going to give us tips and tricks on that today. And yeah, just any questions, just post them down in the comments down below. And Stacy, why don't we just kick it off with how did you get started in doing the work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Amanda. So great to be here. My story didn't start out so well. I today I'm a mindfulness and meditation facilitator and coach, but it didn't start out that way. I worked in the corporate world for many, many years, and partway through in my mid 20s, there was a moment that I completely burnt out and I hit rock bottom. Um, that was a really rough and down part of my life, and it shouldn't have been that way. And what I mean by that is I was newly married at the time. We had a brand new house that we had just bought. I had a relatively new job, and it seemed like life should be really good, except I was commuting in traffic almost 2 hours a day. Um, I was stressed and overwhelmed. Back then, I had a BlackBerry, so that'll definitely date me a little bit in terms of how old I am. But I had a BlackBerry that I never forget, that I had that blinking red light. And at night, like I, would be done with work, but I'd have that phone plugged in next to my bed, and those BlackBerries had this blinking red light, and this would just wake me up in the middle of the night. And I remember that I would try to ignore it, but of course, like our devices do, roped me in, and I would be checking my email next thing that I know, and time goes by, I can't sleep. So I'm getting into this insomnia cycle where it's like, I can't sleep very well, so then I take anti-anxiety medication to knock me out, which does, and then I have to get up for work in a few hours and start the cycle all over again. So I
Yeah.
really got into this downward spiral. That was really tough, and I don't even think I realized that it was happening until one day I hit rock bottom. I came home from work and I was so stressed, fighting with my now ex-husband, but my husband at the time. And I remember just like making a drink, like sitting down on the couch, and put my head in my hands, and I just started bawling, like just sobbing from the deepest part of me of like, how did I get here? Things should be good, and yet I'm just stressed and I'm miserable. Like, how am I going to live the rest of my life in this kind of a way? This is too much. This is too hard. And so it was interesting that bottom pit moment was actually when I had this like awareness, or this realization of, well, wait a second, there's been other times in my life that I've been stressed, but how did I manage it? And it flashed back to a time in college where I I took a yoga and a meditation class, and really chilled me out. And I thought, well, why am I not doing that now? So
Yeah.
I just, with a burst of inspiration, I went over to our closet, and I pulled out my old yoga mat, And I rolled it out and I sat down and I said, I just made a commitment right then and there. I said, I'm going to, instead of when I come home for work and make a drink and kind of go into the evening, I'm going to just 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just breathe and stretch a little bit to shift my way of being. And that's what I did. And I made a shift. And from there, every day, I just slowly kind of turned things around. And of course, it didn't happen overnight. It was many, small steps, but finding this connection, I think, with my inner light and not that blackberry light is really what started to shift things. And so then for the remainder of my career, and really up until this point, those practices of mindfulness, meditation, yoga, and then into self-love and self-care and all of these things that we're going to talk more about today are things that I've taken with me and that have really, really, really helped me stay grounded and calm despite the chaos that's happening around. So I worked in corporate for many, many more years, but with those practices really allowed me to find peace amidst the chaos. And so today I'm super passionate about helping busy people, especially busy people who work, and women particularly, stress less in less time. And I think that's a critical piece, because when we're busy and we're stressed, we don't have a whole lot of time to, take hour-long yoga practices and go away on a weekend. Like, we just don't have that time. So how can we do it quickly but effectively and get that momentum to help us change our reaction to stress? And that's really what I'm passionate about. Yeah.
I can see the passion. And I remember when we first chatted, I love how authentic you are, because literally it gives me goosebumps to hear your story, because you can remember like that night coming home. I think a lot of us have these moments where it's like, you'll never forget that moment that it changes. Something has got to shift. You remember where you were, what you were wearing, what you were doing, how you felt. And then that moment was, it was like just that pivotal, I'm changing, and I'm changing for the better.
That's it.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you for being so authentic. I love the stress less in less time. You just launched your new website. So how's that going?
Yeah, it's exciting and also scary all at once. One of the things, and we're talking about self-love today, and I want to get into some of the goodies around it. But as to answer your question, one of the ways that I think I've been channeling self-love to myself during this launch process that I'm just sort of getting started with, but is to be really gentle on myself and with some of the emotions that are coming up around it. So what I notice is anytime we're kind of tapping into our gifts and like what we're here, because every single one of us, everybody who's watching, everybody in the world has a special gift that only they bring to our world. And when we kind of step into that, into our light and share that with other people, it can feel really scary. And in fact, just last weekend, I wrote a post about it. Just on Tuesday this week, but this last weekend, the website finally went live. I've been waiting months and months and months for this to happen, and then it's there, and I'm like, oh shit, well now I gotta share it and people are gonna see it. And I got into this whole fear cycle of, well, what if no one likes it? What if nobody likes my offering? What if no one cares? I went into this whole story about it. And I think the self-love that I kind of shifted and turned back to myself was, there was a moment in time. I always find it's interesting that there's these moments of awareness that like are light bulb moments where I thought, well, wait a second, I'm just seeing this experience through the lens of my fear. Like, what if I were to step outside of that? I know I'm not my fear. So if I can step outside of that and look and say, oh gosh, I'm just really scared right now, how hard that must be. And suddenly all of this compassion and like self-love like came in for myself as soon as I stepped outside of the identification of the fear, and rather I was in the place of essentially myself viewing the fear and being around it. And that really shifted things. So I noticed being gentle on myself. If the fear is there, not being so hard on myself about it, but instead having compassion for doing something like this and taking these steps. And I notice when I do shift from that fear-based thinking to that compassionate self-love space, it changes everything. Like all of a sudden there's a softening, there's like a relaxing that starts to happen. There's, imagine if this was a good good friend of yours going through something like this, would you be berating them? And what if no one signs up? Rather it's like, oh my gosh, this must be really hard. Like, look how far you've come. Look how much you have done. You should be really proud of yourself, and shifting that almost mental self-talk. But again, we're so wired to see the negative and to be really hard on ourselves that it's hard to make that shift. But what I notice is as soon as we have that awareness, everything can change from there. And then it's up to us.
Yeah, so good. The awareness is everything. And what's the acronym for fear? It's just false evidence appearing real, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I did speak with a friend of mine yesterday after that, and she mentioned the post, like, oh, this is great. And she goes, but you're actually wrong about that. Do you know what fear actually stands for? I was like, oh, what? She says, fuck everything and run.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I had a feeling you were going to say that. That's so great. I think, no, that is so great. And it's so true. I've been working with a really amazing therapist, and it was one of the goals when I moved to California. It was just to find somebody that I could just be so real with every single week. And I say that very vulnerably because I know it's not an easy topic and it's a totally different topic. But, she gave me a really good tip on facing that fear. And it does all start with awareness. And it's like, just do it anyways. Like do it scared. Like whatever you're fearful of doing, launching your website, asking someone to take a look at your classes, whatever, just do it anyways. And she said it's usually just that little reminder of like doing what the opposite. So you don't want to do it, just do the opposite. And literally it's like countdown, 3, 2, 1, do the opposite. And the more you do it, the more you unlink all of those channels that we have, in our brains that are just constantly, it's like we get addicted to the hormones that are released when we're in that like flight or fight all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like being so busy and so this and so that. And it's just like, no, I want to channel more self-love and I want to feel good about it. So what are your biggest tips on doing that? How can these wonderful people that are watching us channel more self-love? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Gosh, there's this is such a deep topic and so many things, but in preparing for this, I thought, well, what are some really good takeaways that I could share? And I can't wait to get to yours too, because I know you have a lot of great things to share.
It's okay. This is great. It's perfect, Stacy.
Good. So one of the things, I guess I've got 6 things, and we already talked about one, which is sort of this being really gentle on yourself. I'm
going to take notes. Get your pen and your papers. Okay. Number 1 is gentle on yourself.
Yeah. The other is, I don't know if you've heard this term before. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Oh my gosh, that's my coffee mug I use every morning.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Of course you said that. Yeah.
I read a book years ago that has become one of my favorites, and I've gone back to it several times. It's called Effort. Well, his new book is Effortless. The original book I'm speaking of is called Essentialism, and it's by a gentleman named Greg McKeown. And he is awesome, by the way. Like, plug for him. He has a podcast too and talks about everything in your life, like to really just weed out. Essentialism is less but better in our lives. So in this world of overwhelm, it's a way to really simplify. And what I love about this, one of the comments that he says is that if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So many of us, and myself included, can get really stuck in channeling our love outside of ourselves, right? So we're thinking about our friends, our family, our kids, our spouse, our work, our colleagues, all of this, and the energy kind of flows out, which isn't a bad thing. That is a wonderful thing as well. However, if we're not filling our cup up first, we don't really have much to give. And I think sometimes what can happen, and this is something that happens to me, is I can overcommit, I can overpromise on certain things. And what happens is I start saying yes to all the non-essential items in my life, right? So this might be whether it's an invitation for, maybe coffee to somebody that I just recently met. If there's like something in me that's just, it's not resonating fully for whatever reason, and I may not have a good reason for it, it's just, it's not feeling fully right, I have to go with that. And I'm showing myself that self-love when, if I'm lighting up and saying, yes, like this person, just, I'm super resonating with them and I want to connect, like, then it's a hell yes, we go for it. But if it's like a maybe, or I don't know, or you can kind of feel it in your body when you're not fully lit up about something, then it's a no. And to me, that's been a wonderful litmus test when I'm just not sure how I want to react or engage, or if I'm being asked something, that's really the answer, is that commitment of what's true for me. And if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And so I say no more often, but it leaves room for what's essential. And I get to spend more of my time and my energy with things that are the hell yes. Because when you're saying no to something, you're saying yes to something else.
And making more space, right, for the things that actually serve you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can fill up with that, which to me is like, I get chills thinking about that. I mean, that is self-love, like that, no question about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So gentle on yourself. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Yeah.
And then, okay, what's number 3?
So number 3 is, on the heels of that, is do more of what makes your heart sing. This is something that I'm really trying to learn to do. So for example, in my life, I am very oriented around work. It's actually one of my number 1 values. I love, sounds crazy, but I love to work. I love helping people. And I also love my family and everything else. But I notice what happens is that if I'm not taking time out, like I can just work all day and do the things because I'm so passionate about it, as you can see.
Yeah, same. I can do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so on the one hand, it does make my heart sing in a way. But what I more mean by what makes your heart sing are those things where you're just in your passion. So for me, the things that I love to do, like I love singing. Like singing to me is one of my most favorite activities. And I've got an app on my phone. I don't know if there's any other singers in the house, but there's an app called Smule, and it's basically people singing karaoke. And when I'm just needing a little dose of like self-love, to me, I put on that app and I just like sing a few songs, which makes me feel so just good inside. So
I love that. I wrote that down. I like to sing too.
Yes.
I'm not very good at it, but I can do, like, I sat out here with like my really good friend and my sister when they were visiting, and we just went like past the mic of let's sing. What's your song? What, it does.
This is
that. Like, so, yeah, I know.
It's
Such a good reminder.
like that. Absolutely.
Do more of what makes your heart sing. I love that.
And so for others, it could be playing an instrument. Maybe you love wakeboarding. I mean, whatever that activity is where you just feel lit up. Because what I've noticed too is when we do those types of activities, we're showing ourselves all of this love, and we're just doing it for fun. We're not doing it for an outcome. We're not doing it for like some creation's sake to have some goal in mind. It's more just about illuminating your essence and just being in pure joy. And I think that self-love really is about being joyful, and that's different for everybody. So taking time out can feel like a waste of time. I know I can get that, like, oh, I don't have time to play my ukulele, like I've got this deadline. It's like, actually, no, that helps energetically flow with whatever else you're working on. So I think that's a huge thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. I would think the next one is as a part of this. So we just talked about singing, but another way to really channel self-love is to speak your truth. This also kind of falls in line with the whole boundaries part we just talked about, which is that if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So as a part of that, speaking our truth is a way that we're honoring ourselves and we're loving ourselves, essentially. So speaking our truth can be a really, really powerful way. And there's nice ways to do it. In fact, I learned a great formula of like how to say no. So it's taking the no that you've got, because you have to tell that person like, oh, maybe I can't hang out next weekend or whatever it is. But there's a way to say it. And the formula, see if I can remember it. It's like, first of all, it's gratitude. Like, thank you so much for inviting me to have coffee with you on Saturday. However, I'm not able to attend. perhaps in the future we could meet again. I wish you well. Like there's some formula where you're basically saying thank you, the no, and then the gratitude again. You're sort of sandwiching it. So
Yeah.
you're not,
Yeah.
we don't have to sugarcoat things in life. That's not what I mean. But I feel like I know that took a lot for that person to ask. And I want to honor and value them as a person in who's wanting to connect with me. And I feel that that's a way to do it gently, but also firmly with kindness. And
Yeah.
that's really, really the key there. So we can speak our truth and with kindness. I think that's the piece that I would add to that.
So good.
Yeah. And the last one, we'll stick with 5 because we want to move
Okay.
over and hear from you. The last one, in terms of how we can channel our self-love, is writing out affirmations. So I don't know if anyone listening or you've ever tried writing affirmations. Maybe if you have, just like throw us a little emoji. I'm so curious to hear.
Or
So
throw your favorite affirmation. What do you say to yourself every
yeah,
day? Put it down in the comments because that's always helpful for me too.
yeah,
Like,
right.
what are you actually saying? Yeah.
So I have a practice where I write down affirmations. And if you don't know what they are, just to define an affirmation, it's essentially saying something as if it were already true in the present time. So for example, if there's something in your life that you want, or maybe it's a quality that you want to exude more in your life, actually
Yeah.
writing it down or saying it like, I am confident.
Yeah.
I am relaxed. Whatever that quality is, not focusing on what it isn't, is focusing on what you're not or what you're lacking, but instead focusing on what it is that you want. And then the key is saying it in present tense as if it's already true, because our subconscious minds, they can't tell the difference between what's real and what isn't. So our
Yeah.
language is so important in terms of how we phrase things and how we talk to ourselves. So that kind of goes in earlier on that be gentle with yourself tip to channel self-love. So here it's a way to like really say to yourself these qualities that you want in terms of I am, to show yourself that love. And it's amazing. I mean, I find that writing down affirmations can literally change your life.
I read something, speaking of formulas, there's something that is supposed to be around like if you write it like 3 times in the morning and then write it again like 6 times at noon and then write it again like 9 times at night or something. I don't know if those numbers are right. I don't think that they are. For me, I just like write it and then read it over and over again. But I think there's like some sort of writing it multiple times a day
Mm.
is, it takes me back in my business when I was going for a big goal. I had affirmations, post-it notes all over my car. So it was like literally driving. They were on the dashboard. They were on the fridge. They were on the laptop. They were in my bathroom mirror. It's like, because we can be so hard on ourselves. I needed like all the reminders that I was doing the right thing for the right reasons and like going for it,
I love that. That's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
love
great.
the affirmations for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So those are so great. Thank you so much for sharing. Gentle on yourself. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Do more of what makes your heart sing. Speak your truth. I don't know if you got to listen to that podcast, but man, that was so good when she was saying the world really just needs more people to
Mm-hmm.
just speak the truth and get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I love
We
that.
hold back. I do. I feel like I literally have a gift of being able to relate to pretty much anyone. I've had lots of life happen, and but I feel like that is one of my gifts. I could just sit and have a conversation with anyone and really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate what they have to say and what you just like you said. I want to honor that person and their story, and I know that a lot of things have been challenging for a lot of people, especially right now.
Mm.
Um, but just getting uncomfortable with really speaking the truth. I feel myself, I hold back so much, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
part of channeling more self-love, that is like my number one takeaway from you, is just
Mm-hmm.
speaking more truth, not holding back, being okay with being uncomfortable. And really, what are you doing it for? Is it for the right reasons? Is it going to bring value? Is it going to help that person? It makes me sweaty even thinking about
Mm-hmm.
it, but I'm really going to practice that one a lot more. So thank you for sharing that one.
Love it. Yes.
Finding out your affirmations. Um,
Good. Well, I would
Yeah.
love to hear more
And
from
I'm
you.
looking at all my questions of what yeah. No,
Yeah.
that would, it's just so, so good. Thank you for sharing all of that. I feel like we got like a little free mini session from what it would be like to be in like your master class, learning meditation from you, learning more about affirmations. So you can always go to Stacy's website. What will you put your website down in the comments for
Yeah,
people to check you out too
I
later?
definitely will. Yeah.
I know we probably will wrap up, but we're going to do this again, Stacey.
Yeah.
My yeah, we'll do it again. I wanted to ask you, what do you think that we should like let go of? Like, I think people get caught in a cycle of stress and anxiety, and then, like I said, we feed off those hormones. What are some tools and strategies that you have to let go of things that are no longer serving you?
Hmm. Oh, that's such a good question. Man, I'm gonna just tap in and like take in that question. What are tools and strategies that I offer to let go of things that aren't serving us anymore? Yeah, man. Well, first of all, and I feel like this is a little bit of a theme, but is first off identifying what it is that you want to let go of, right? Being really clear about what that is. And what I notice in my process,
Mm.
um, I work with a coach. I have a mastermind group that I'm a part of. I need a lot of support because I often don't see what it is that is in my way, and what I might want to let go of. So having a support of other people to help shine a light on those things, and of course I'm very open to that, can be really helpful. But even if that's not the case, I might have an inkling. So for example, I have a coaching session once a month. I'll have one next week, and I have a running list kind of in my notes where if I'm bumping up against a challenge or some wall in my life, like I can feel it, like there's some resistance that I'm having. So some challenge, whether um, uh, whether it's some of the fear I was talking about earlier about launching, maybe it's about being seen out there in the world, or another one is I've been having jaw, like I've been feeling like my jaw has been really tight, so there's this resistance, but I'm not sure kind of what it is about or where that's come from. And so what I noticed, in terms of letting go of those things, so I'm kind of aware of that, and then I have this list of things that when I talk to my coach, I want to say, okay, this is kind of what's going on, here's the situation, I'd love to work through this. And then that can be really helpful in helping me let go of whatever that might be, some root cause issue. And I noticed that a lot of it usually comes to some type of limiting belief that's underneath it. There's something that I'm saying or believing about myself that
Yeah,
isn't true and that's operating on autopilot in the background. So
yeah,
when I can recognize that and bring attention to it, it feels uncomfortable first of all, because I'm like, oh crap, like this is something that I
yeah,
do, and it's a pattern that I don't like it, and like, oh, so I got to
yeah,
go through that. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, this is the first step of being aware of this, so then I can take steps to let it go. So other ways that I do that, and I really think that this helps channel self-love, in letting go of these things. So for example, I might pull out my journal and write down, like, what are the things that I'm feeling fear, so what are the things that I'm afraid of, just to get them out of my head and
yeah,
into a place away from me, to just kind of get that separation, like becoming more of the observer than kind of being caught up in it. So I think one tip is, like, first, as I mentioned, talk to somebody about it if you can to
yeah,
help you. Second is to write about it, right? Kind of like bring awareness through your writing. And I think third, maybe a tool. One of my favorite meditations that I have created, and I tend to get a lot of feedback about this one being really good, but I have one called Let Go of Negativity. And what I love about the meditation is it's kind of letting go of what's not serving me. Sometimes there's negative energy in my space that isn't even me, isn't even mine, if that makes sense. If you walk into a situation, maybe you're, with some friends and like the couple's fighting, or there's drama at home, maybe you've gone back to visit your family, or maybe there's just things going on where people that you love are bringing their kind of energy into your space, and you
yeah,
might take it on a bit. So a great way to release that, I have a meditation where it's like you take, you're grounded, you're connected, you're breathing, and you have a visualization where you see a big red balloon, and you start just putting all of this negative energy that's either yours or somebody else's in the balloon. And you just kind of watch it get bigger and bigger and bigger until you can't think of anything else that you want to let go of, and it's full. And then you just have it on a string, and then you let it go, and you just watch it go up in the sky, and then eventually it pops and the energy is released. So sometimes it can be really helpful to have some kind of guidance or support in helping you let go of those things and holding space for you to do that.
It's so simple. Such a good reminder. The red balloon. Hopefully that serves a lot of people watching. The red balloon. Put it in a red balloon and watch it go.
Yeah.
I've also, I'll give myself like, okay, 10 minutes. You get to ruminate, write it down, 10 minutes, and then everything that is not serving you, negative, whatever, and then it's like a brain dump, or 2 minutes, or whatever. Set your alarm and then close it, shelve it, and then you can actually choose when you want to take it back off the shelf, or you can keep it on the shelf. It's shelved. So yeah.
It seems so simple, right? These little pieces, but yet they're so profound. And again, what I love about what you just shared too is that's kind of a quick and really simple practice to engage in. It doesn't take you hours. Like, this isn't something really complicated. I think the hardest part sometimes is just getting started. Actually make that shift, to actually pull it out, like pull out your journal, pull out the things, do the work, and walk away. Like, that can sometimes just be the hardest part.
It is.
Yeah.
The easiest things are often the hardest part, for sure. It's kind of like my healthy living lifestyle. It's not always easy, but it's worth it.
Now, could you share a little bit with us? I would love to hear. You were telling me about these kind of 4 areas when it comes to channeling self-love that you think about. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I would love to. It's really a practice that we've done in my family for years and years now. I was like you in corporate America and climbing that ladder, and was very stressed out and had things happening in my body that were not me, not what I ever saw for myself. And long story short, just decided to make a big shift in that and just dive into something completely different. But it's ended up being one of the best decisions that I ever made. And along with it comes this practice of really practicing what I preach. And, for me, channeling more self-love, breaking down the pillars of course, what you're eating, and, also what you're putting on your body is just as important. Your skin being your largest organ, but you can eat great if you're not exercising, you don't have that stress management, and you don't have adequate sleep. It's kind of like, for me, those 4 pillars, you really need all of them to really perform at, I think, a higher level. So if you're, you could be eating great all day long and going to spin classes and working out and drinking enough water, but if you're not sleeping at night, or you don't have any sort of way of managing the stress, which is a couple of the pieces that I personally was missing, it's, you're missing a really important piece of channeling more self-love. So, but it's not always easy, for sure. It's a lot easier to just grab something easy, like drive fast, whatever it's called, the drive-through. You can tell I really don't ever go to drive. I'm like, what's that called? A lot easier to get takeout than it is to actually make a meal. Just all these little things that I feel like really help channel more self-love, but you feel so much better after you do it that way. And then after a while, it just becomes your way of living. So that's how I do it. Yeah.
Tell us the 4 pillars again.
Adequate sleep, for one, and stress management, which I love partnering with you on that, because I just got so much out of that. Really what you're eating, so your nutrition habits, and then what was my other one? The exercise. Yeah. And I think they all play such an important part, for sure. So that's what I love to do, is help people on those levels. And
and what I'm hearing you say too is those 4 pillars feel very holistic, or they each quadrant is important to have in order to have that full kind of picture of self-love, right? Like, if one's missing, it can throw you off balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we could dive into it so deep, just even that stress management one. For me, that was really uncovering some of the ways that I am triggered because of what's happened in my past or like childhood stuff. So that was my biggest thing of I'm going to work with a professional weekly or biweekly, whatever, to really, because I just feel like the more you know about yourself, and I think you had said it, the root cause, it's not just this like surface level, what's the root of that? Because it just has the power for me to change generations. And I don't know if anybody on here can relate to that, but like being the first one to actually change how something was done in your family feels really scary, but it's all about that channeling of this, of more self-love for sure. But
Yeah. I
maybe
think
next time we can dive deeper into like the whole nutrition aspect and exercise aspect and all of that.
I would love
I'd
that.
love to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been true
Yeah.
for me on my journey as well. Just this whole piece, like it's the stress management's one component, like our mental, emotional mindset. But then in the physical world, we're humans in a physical world. Like, how are we supporting that too?
Yeah.
Because foods can cause stress. Like, there's so many elements there that can be really really challenging. And I
Yeah.
think too, maybe next time, I love that idea of going into the nutrition side and then also talking about some of the challenges and how to overcome them, because I know that it can be really hard to change habits like our eating. Like that's
Yeah.
really can be really, really challenging.
And
So
I've got great tips and tricks for that. That's what we can share on next time for sure,
I
Stacy. Just
love that.
dive into, because Stacy and I feel like she's like a long lost sister. We have so
I
much
feel
in
that too.
common with
Yeah.
how we eat and how we live and, how we want to raise babies and all these things. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I love that too. Awakened Prana, she or he said, I'm also careful about what I put in my mind.
Yes.
Such like what we're reading, what we're watching, what we're listening to. I've always been taught you become the top 5 people that you're hanging out with.
Yes.
So I'm like, if you're not at a level where I want to be, or I'm currently not, like, I just, it's like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no, right? Like, you need to associate who's in your circle. What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you know,
Yes.
the news right now is just absolutely crazy, but who are you
Yeah.
hanging out with? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Are they making you better, or are they bringing you down? Not
Right.
letting you channel more self-love. So,
Right. Great. I
well,
love that.
thank you so much, Stacy. I can't
Thank
wait to do
you,
this
Amanda.
again.
This
Yeah,
was great. Yeah, I loved it. And thank you everybody
great.
for joining
Yeah,
us.
thank
Wonderful
you
having you here
everyone for
with us.
joining. Yep, for sure.
Good.
Okay, well, have a great
Bye.
rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks everyone. Take
Yeah,
care.
thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.